1,000 people in jail in criminal defense. I do civil plaintiffs work right now, civil defense. I defend a large corporation. So I've kind of done it all. So I'm happy to talk about what being a lawyer is like, what you should do in college to maybe consider going to law school. So just fire away.
So, can you like go up and telling us how you got into Harvard at such a young age? Because I think everyone's kind of interested in knowing how you were able to graduate undergrad at 19. I think Harvard Law School at 22, right?
Yeah. So I'm a super nerd. I skipped a couple grades in elementary school. So when I was in high school, I was always a little bit younger. I graduated high school at 16. I took like every AP in the world. So when I started college, I was a junior. So I was able to graduate in 3 years, just taking like 8 or 12 units. And then I went straight. So I graduated college at 19, went straight to law school, and then did that in 3 years. So 16, 19, 22. And that's kind of where I ended up where I am.
Wow. Did you always know that you wanted to be a lawyer? Was there like ever any hesitation to that?
It's something I always wanted to do. I was born here, but my grandfather was a judge in Iran. So like I just had that. And I can kind of talk to people if they're considering being a lawyer. There's different types of jobs out there. Some people are lovers, but I'm definitely a fighter. I was always kind of just one of those people that not like in the literal sense, but like, I would argue, I would debate. It's just something that I enjoyed, the kind of adversarial side of things. So there's no question that that was what I wanted to do, and that was what I was going to do when I kind of got out of school.
And I've read that you worked with some like big corporations. I think O'Malbany was one.
Yes.
And
So
like, how was that kind of diving into the deep end, representing companies like Marriott and Disney after high school, after law school?
um, yeah, so O'Melveny is the biggest law firm in LA, or at least it was at the time. And the way law school works is you you go to school obviously during the year, and during the summers you intern at firms or wherever you think you might want to work. So in LA at the time, there was like three huge law firms. They called them the Big Three. I worked at one of them my first summer. I was called Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher. Then my second summer, I was deciding between the other two. They both recruited me, and they recruit you out of school. I went to O'Melveny. My second summer, I ended up going there after I graduated. And then once I was there, I was representing these huge corporations like Disney, Marriott, Roman Catholic Church. Those are the types of clients I defended when I was there.
And speaking of the church, I've heard like that's one of the reasons you decided to transition into personal injury. So how did you like go into building West Coast trial lawyers into what it is today?
I never thought I was going to be a personal injury attorney. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to be that. I mean, again, I'm Persian, my wife's Persian, my kids are like, I don't want to be that guy, that Persian guy on like the billboard or bus bench. It just wasn't me. I can kind of tell you my story. So when I was at O'Melveny, I always wanted to be a judge. That was the plan. So I was going to go to the big firm, representing these big companies, make money, then go become a prosecutor, then become a judge. So the way everything went down was I went to O'Melveny, and we were hired by the Catholic Church to represent them in the priest sex abuse cases. And I hated it. I mean, obviously, excuse my language, I mean, those cases were super fucked up. It's just, this is not what I wanted to do. So I went to the government. That was when it's kind of the heyday of the drug cartels, started doing narcotics prosecutions, went down to San Diego, did that. Then my wife and I, we had a kid in San Diego. So she's like, well, it's not the safest job in the world. Maybe it's something that, we should like do something a little bit more mellow. Came back to LA, started doing like public corruption, going after, dirty politicians and that type of thing. Then the following year, my son was born, and my wife, she's an attorney as well. She's an attorney for foster kids. So I was a prosecutor. She's representing foster kids. We're both working for the government, and we were just broke. Living in LA. I mean, you guys own PV, it's like it's expensive, and two lawyers on government salaries, two kids. Like we were spending more on childcare than we were like our salary. So we kind of sat down one day and we just had an honest conversation. And we're like, look, one of us needs to go back to the private sector. And then that one of us was me. So I almost went back to the firm. Like, look, come back as a partner and see if you can generate some business. And my current partner now, his name's Alan. He's not Persian, he's Armenian, he's Persian Armenian. and or his parents are Persian Armenian. And he approached me. He actually recruited me at a law school when I was deciding between those different firms. He recruited me to Old Melbourne. He was like a young associate then. He's like, listen, man, let's start a personal injury firm. I'm like, personal injury, man, you're crazy. Like, why would I do personal injury? I went to Harvard Law, man. I'm not gonna. He's like, no, you're really gonna like it. I'm like, why would I like it? He's like, it's the closest thing to being a prosecutor and actually getting paid. You're helping people. You're going after the bad guy. So it kind of sold me on this vision of this kind of like a higher end plaintiff's practice. So we do personal injury and employment now. We only represent people that are injured or something like wrong has happened in the work, and discriminated, sexually harassed. We do a lot of civil rights work. We represent a lot of Persians that have been victims of hate crimes and that type of thing. So we started about 7 years ago, up to like 25 lawyers and about 100 like staff right now.
So, how was that like to build up a business as a new firm? How did you bring cases in, or did you guys already have like a caseload when you started the firm?
No, I mean, we had to bring cases. Alan had a partner before, a partner bought him out. So when we started, like, we had nothing, right? So luckily I've been practicing a while. People kind of knew who I was. I was like maybe 12, 13 years out. So, you know, we weren't like just some young, you know, kids straight out of law school. A lot of trial experience, a lot of big firm experience, but we had to kind of build it. And, you know, like what we do just from like a financial perspective, there's different types of law, right? A lot of lawyers, they're paid up front with the retainer, right? Or they bill hourly. Ours is different. Like we only work on contingencies. So we're only paid when we win the case, which can be challenging because, you know, like a great case can come in today, but it's going to take me 2-3 years before I win the case and we're paid. So it took a while for us to kind of make money and become profitable. So those first couple of years were really tough, but we were able to kind of generate business and we hit some big cases, and it's been kind of snowballing since then, just like kind of any startup.
And you guys have a big social media presence, obviously. So has that factored into like how big West Coast trial lawyers has gotten?
Totally. And you know, so when I got into this, when Alan convinced me to do personal injury and plaintiffs work, and I know these guys that like, you know, I'm friends with all of like the other Persians, right? We all know each other. So like all the billboard guys, all the radio guys, all people I know, I'm like, look, you know, I know these people, they have like a 20-year head start on us. Like, I can't do billboards, I can't do radio, there's no way. So we decided to go in completely different direction. This was kind of when digital was picking up. So we decided Google, Yelp, like Facebook, Instagram. We're like, so like we're only in the digital space. That's kind of our area, and we do really, really well. Just because and like I spent a lot of time like with big like, and they're Persian too, like PI lawyers in Texas and all over the country before I decided to do this. I wasn't going to kind of jump into something like this without doing my due diligence. So that's why we've really done well, because of digital and social media, because it's important. Like I have like, you know, people that like are homeless and they'll find us on my Facebook. It's crazy. So that's kind of our space.
And I know like every firm runs with a different model. Like some try every case, some run at high volume. What approach do you guys take?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm working with kind of, I always say, we're the idiots that do both. So most plaintiffs firms, they either do the marketing, they do pre-litigation, they're like a mill, and they just have a lot of volume. And when cases go to litigation, they just kind of send it to another type of firm. Then there's like the litigation firms that just kind of try cases. We do both. Like we do the pre-litigation, we do litigation, and that's why our firm name is what it is. We're West Coast Trial Lawyers. The reason we're downtown, most people hate going downtown, is because we're 2 blocks from the courthouse. Like if we send a demand, we get a bad response or a bad offer, we're gonna file a lawsuit that same day. So we're all about trying cases. Some lawyers don't like trying cases, they're kind of scared, but like we're the opposite. That's the whole fun of being a lawyer, is going to trial. So if you don't like going to trial, like we're not the firm to be at.
And can you like quickly define like what plaintiff means in case like
Sure.
anyone doesn't know that, or some of the other terms?
Yeah, so there's different kind of areas of the law, right? So I'll kind of give an example. On the criminal side, most people are familiar, right? You have a prosecutor, right? They're either working for the federal government, like I worked for the US Attorney's Office, right? The Department of Justice, or the state, the Attorney General's office, or the district attorney, like in PV, there's no city attorney, or the city attorney, right? So, and depending on the type of case, if it's like a violation of federal law, federal prosecutors are going to handle. State law could be the Attorney General. Usually it's not. Like for instance, Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of California before she became the U.S. Senator, before she became Vice President. The district attorney handles most felony cases in cities, and sometimes the city attorney for like a big city like LA or Long Beach, they'll handle misdemeanor cases. So on the criminal side, you have your prosecution and you have your defendant, right? Your prosecutor and defendant. On the civil side, you have the person who's suing, which is the plaintiff, and the person who is getting sued, the defendant. We only represent plaintiffs. So we only represent people that something bad has happened to them. Someone's died, they've been raped, they've been sexually assaulted, they've been physically assaulted, or something bad has happened at work, right? They've been sexually harassed, wrongfully terminated, discriminated against. So we never defend anyone. We only represent the victims, and we go after people who have victimized them.
Got it. And so I see you commenting all the time on like CNN and stuff on many criminal cases. So being a personal injury attorney, is there any reason, or is that like a marketing strategy?
It's a marketing strategy, and let's just be honest. Like, I don't like defense work, so I'm not going to defend those criminals. Like, I wish I could still be a prosecutor and have a lot of prosecution experience. And just those cases are just more interesting, right? I could have someone that like is dead, or, and this is sad, or like, seriously injured, they're like paralyzed or amputated, or just really, really just tragic, horrific stuff. No one wants to hear about that, right? When, you go on TMZ, you want to say, oh my God, this person's accused of rape. This person like stabbed someone. This person's a murderer. That's just what the public likes to hear. And because I'm a former prosecutor that doesn't defend any of these people, the TV cameras love me because I don't care what I say, because I don't want to represent these people. And the prosecutors, because they work for the government, they generally can't be commenting publicly because they're in the public sector and they're handling these types of cases. So the fact that I'm a former prosecutor that doesn't do criminal defense work, I'm like kind of the ideal person. And personally, I love talking about these cases. Like, I've spent like the past 3 weeks talking about the George Floyd murder trial. It's probably, at least in your guys' lifetime, the biggest trial we've seen. And then like a little bit older folks like us, we haven't had anything like this since OJ and Rodney King.
So I know that your firm has represented like celebrities in the past. Is there a difference in how you handle their cases versus a regular client's cases? Or
Not really. The celebrity stuff is great because it's good marketing and that, but a case is a case. It doesn't matter if it's like Carmen Electra or Lily Glici or whoever it is, their case is going to be the case. So it's really kind of based on the facts and the law. So we got to handle it just like any other. Now, sometimes like if it's a celebrity, we have 25 lawyers. They're going to only want to talk to me or one of the senior folks, as opposed to some of the other younger attorneys. So in some ways, like the client management part of it's a little bit different. But as far as how the case is litigated and handled, there's really no difference.
and then so obviously like you guys have had major success in the SoCal area. So and you have a great team to get there. So what talents do you look for when you're hiring new lawyers?
That's a great question, Kendall. So there's different types of lawyers, right? When I say kind of a fighter, I want someone who's going to be aggressive. So normally, because a lot of lawyers just bill and that's how they get paid. If you go, like, let's say I was going back to Melvin. Melvin doesn't really care how aggressive, how efficient I am, right? If I'm there, I'm profitable. They're billing me out. Disney's paying like hundreds of dollars an hour for me to do work for them. For us, we're only paid when we win. So I don't want someone that's just there like pushing paper, right? I want someone that's going to fight, it's going to be aggressive, and it's going to go at it. I want a winner. So it takes a little bit of a kind of a different personality to be successful in my type of firm, as opposed to a defense firm.
So now if you don't mind, I have a couple questions that were submitted to me. So if I could ask those.
Fire away. I'm an open book.
Okay, so someone asked, what are your tips on doing well on the LSAT?
Yeah, LSAT's crazy test. All right. So unlike anything else, right? You guys are in school, you're studying, whatever, you're in calculus or US history, AP, whatever. Most of the time, you're gonna like memorize the material. Even the bar exam is like it used to be 3 days, now it's 2 days. It's just a memorization test. LSAT's not like that. LSAT's about speed, right? If everyone on the weekend I did the LSAT, everyone will get a 180, right? The issue with the LSAT is you're gonna run out of time. So there's 4 sections. There's reading comp. Reading comp is the hardest part to improve on. Some people are good at reading comp, some people aren't. So there's 4 sections. My advice to you on that is make sure you at least crush 3 of those 4 sections. If you run out of time, I'm sorry, three of the 4 passages, right? If you run out of time, you got to guess on the last one, but you got to really get 100% or close to 100% on 3 of the 4. And again, reading comp's hard to improve on. Then you have 2 logical reasoning sections. There's only like a finite number of questions, and these are all logic questions, like, you know, so it'll be like, you know, all high school students like use Zoom, you know, if you use Zoom, you know, you need a laptop, and like the logical inference would be all high school students use laptops, right? So that's like a very basic logical thing. You got to understand the logic, and you got to take one of these LSAT prep courses. Could be test masters, could be blueprint, Kaplan, whatever the case may be. You got to take it, because unless you really studied logic like in a very sort of formal way, you're not going to understand like the logical reasoning. So that's where the testing comes in. The prep comes in. You got to take one of those prep classes for the logical reasoning, because it's 50% of the LSAT. The last section, of course, we'll call logical games. That's the part you're going to be able to improve on the most. They'll give you a series of premises, and you're going to have to be like, they'll say like, you know, 8 people are sitting around a table. You know, Kiana's sitting next to Neama. Neama is not sitting next to, you know, so-and-so. And you got to kind of map it out, and they'll ask you like 6 to 8 questions about it. So for the logical games, they're going to teach you, these programs, how to kind of map it out so you can quickly answer those questions. So bottom line is, you got to practice your speed, and you got to practice these types of questions that you're really kind of never going to see on any test aside from the LSAT.
Thank you. And another question we have is, what expectations do you have when taking on new cases?
Yeah, so what we want to do is, I don't know if any of you guys are a little young, if anyone plays poker or knows how to play poker, but this is where the poker analogy is. So those of you that play poker, you got to know this: the worst hand in poker, by far the worst hand. People think it's like 7 deuce offsuit or this. It's not. The worst hand in poker is the second best hand, and this is why. If you have a great hand, you're gonna win. You know, you're gonna win the pot. You're gonna make money. If you have a bad hand, you're gonna throw that hand away. The worst thing you can do in poker is to commit your money, and for us, commit our time on a hand that's a questionable hand that ends up being a loser hand. So we need to do the analysis right away and tell our prospective clients, hey, you have a winner, let's push this case aggressively. Or no, based on the facts and the law, you have a loser. Because the last thing you want to do is waste your client's time and your own time on a loser hand when you're doing contingency fee work. Now, other types of lawyers, they don't care. Remember, they're billing, they're getting paid regardless of the outcome. So we need to quickly and efficiently analyze our clients' cases and tell them, hey, do you have a winning hand or do you have a loser?
What realizations did you have when you entered into the legal field?
I realized, and this is going to happen to you guys every step of the way, right? You know, I kind of give like the sports analogy. You might be like a great basketball player, you might be balling everyone up in high school. Well, guess what? When you go to college, it's a different level, you know? Then you go to the NBA, it's a different level. When you come out, this is the all-star league. So a lot of people, look, Persians, we're smart people. Let's just be honest, you know? And some of us do really well without really trying that hard. That was kind of me. I was always a good test taker, did well in school. Then when I came to college, I'm like, oh, the level of competition is that much higher. I go to law school, oh shit, these motherfuckers at Harvard, they're really smart. Then when you come out, it's even better. So you got to kind of prepare yourself. Like every step you take from high school to college to grad school to the working, like when you're out in the workforce, these people are going to be really smart. They're going to be really hungry. They're going to be competitive. And it doesn't matter where you went to school, how smart you are, you really got to bring your A game or someone's going to eat you alive.
This is my question. How do you specialize in one specific area of law? Like, I know there's different categories like white collar crime or a criminal personal injury. Like sort of how in medicine, like you do a fellowship for where you want to specialize in law, do you just like apply after law school for a job in the field you want to and
Yeah, so law
procedures?
is a little less formal. But we have our own residency. When you come out, so like residents, right? When you're in medical school, you're gonna be interned, you're gonna go through your residency, and you're gonna be like someone's bitch. You're gonna work really, really hard. You're gonna work 80 hours. You're gonna have to learn the game. So we don't have that formal residency, but believe me, when you come out, you're gonna be slaving away for any firm. And that's how you kind of learn the practice of law. And once you're in there, you're going to decide. Like, so for instance, in law, there's two really broad categories. There's litigators and there's transactional attorneys. And even within areas of law, you're going to have both. So let's say real estate. Some people are doing real estate deals, agreements, that type of thing. They're transactional. Some people are doing real estate litigation, right? On the patent side, some people are writing patents, submitting them to the patent and trademark office. Those are transactional patent attorneys. It's called patent prosecution. Some people are doing patent infringement. They're suing over patent infringement. Those are litigators. So you got to kind of decide first, are you transactional or are you a litigator? Like, I'm a pure litigator. Then within litigation, you're going to say, hey, do I like criminal? Do I like putting people in jail? Do I like defending people's rights? Do I like family law? Some people hate, they don't want to deal with divorces and that. Like, my wife loves kids, so she's representing kids. So you got to kind of say within litigation, hey, what's the field that you like? And that's what you do after you graduate and you start practicing.
Thank you. And from Nikki, we have the question, which is one of the lawyers that you look up to as a mentor or as someone who inspires you?
And I got my partner Alan. He recruited me and kind of brought me into this, so I gotta give credit to him. There's a couple of other people that really helped me coming up. There's a guy in Arash, most of everyone's in Texas. He's at Capital One. He's like very high up in the general counsel's office. He's in Dallas. He helped me a lot coming up. There was a partner in Melvin, Masood Sohaili, really helped me a lot. Because dude, I'm like a pay it forward person. That's why when you message me, I'm like, absolutely, I'll always help anyone out because I had a lot of help coming up. And then the last would be someone who helped recruit me to O'Melveny as well. He was the U.S. Attorney under the Clinton administration. Now he's the head of DHS under Biden. His name is Ali Mayorkas. So those are four of the people that really helped me out coming up.
So for the next question, it's from Armin, who's in here. His question is, how do you gain connections in the legal firm or legal field?
Yeah, so the most important thing I can kind of tell everyone is just be nice and don't be an asshole. I mean, it's kind of like obvious, but look, it's a small community. And if you're a dick, if you're a mean girl, whatever the case may be, no one's gonna like you. Everyone's gonna know. It's not just high school when you come out. So that's why, like I said, like I make myself available. Even if I'm, you know, going into like nasty litigation with someone, I always shake their hand. I always congratulate them, regardless of the outcome at the end of the case. Because look, it's a small world. Your reputation is super important. It takes a lifetime to build and just a second to kind of ruin. So just know that, especially in this day and age, social media, everyone knows everyone. There's like 2 degrees of separation. So just make sure you act like with honesty and with integrity when you're dealing with people.
And based on your years of experience and success, what advice do you have for people just starting out in the field or not knowing if they want to go into law but considering it?
Yeah, the best advice I have is come work at a firm, intern, because there's no substitute for actually doing it. I can't tell you how many people, look, we're all Persian. We have Persian parents that are pushing us to be like a doctor or a lawyer or engineer or something. And they go to law school, I'm like, oh my God, I hate this. And look, it's really not for everyone. I love it personally. My wife, but I can't tell you how many people they back into law school because they hate organic chemistry in college. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, they want to go to dental school or med school or whatever. They go to law school and they're just unhappy. So there's no substitute for actually working at a firm. I highly recommend it. Best case scenario, it will make you a stronger applicant for law school because you actually have law firm experience. So when people are looking at your resume, like, okay, this person, Kiana, she's actually shown an interest in law. She's worked at a firm. It'll make you that much better of a law student because law has its own language, right? Like English, Farsi, there's a language of law that none of you guys know because you never worked at a firm. But once you do, you're like, okay, this is what all this means. And worst case scenario, you realize, oh my God, like I hate this. Like I don't want to do this. I want to do something else, and it'll save you years of your life, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's my advice for everyone that's thinking about law school.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important to gain experience in the field. But kind of
Yeah,
adding on to that, what do law schools take into account when considering applications?
yeah. So there's kind of three groups of people, right? There's the people. So law school admissions folks, they index you. So they take your GPA, college GPA, they multiply by a certain number, they add it to your LSAT. Some people weigh LSAT more, some people weigh GPA more. It just depends on the school. So once you're indexed, if you're above a certain number, you're in. If you're below, you're out. If you're in the middle, they start looking at the work experience, your letters of rec, and all that type of thing. So obviously, LSAT and GPA are huge, but make sure you get that experience. Make sure you get good letters. Just kind of the same thing you guys are probably doing for college right now.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if I would call it a misconception, but a common thing I've heard is that law school doesn't require certain prerequisite classes like maybe med school or dental school does. So
It,
is
it,
that
it, it
true,
doesn't.
or is it just like you get an undergraduate degree in whatever field and
Anything, yeah, anything. You can be like bio, chem, engineering. You can go to law school. There's no requirements. Now, takes a lot of writing. So if you are kind of one of those science majors, make sure you write and you know how to write, because believe me, you're going to write so much, you're going to type so much that your hands are going to hurt. So we're writers and we're readers. So make sure you have a good foundation in reading and writing, reading content.
yeah. And then the last question I have before I open it up to everyone is how do you think the legal field has changed from the time that you first started to now? Like, has it gone more digital? I think it definitely has.
Totally.
Before it was laser, but now it's digital, I think.
Everything's digital. And too, back in the day, like I don't know, like a dinosaur. Like so much at the bar exam, I hand wrote it. There was no like laptops, right? We used to have to like, I'm gonna be one of those like old Persian parents that talks about like how I walked to school like 2 miles in the snow, But dude, like I still like look things up in books. Like we had like a little library. Harvard was like ranked really high because it's the biggest library. Now no one gives a shit about a library, It's just like, dude, everything's online. I mean, it's changed the game. So if you don't adapt, and look, lawyers are, a lot of them are old school. They just, and that's how you die. As people are still like advertising the yellow pages, forget about it. But that's how, your parents probably found like a lawyer back in the day. It's people aren't doing that. Everyone's on Yelp. People are like find people on Clubhouse, they find people on TikTok, whatever the case may be. If you don't realize like that technology is changing, you will fall behind and you will die regardless of what your profession is.
Thank you for that. And now, like, if anyone wants to jump in and ask him a question, they can, or or
Yeah,
not.
feel free to fire away, guys.
Uh, I think Nikki wants to go for it.
All right, Nikki, what do you got?
Hi. So I had a question with so I was just doing my research on this company. I won't say the name or anything, but this is this company that wants to come out with this technology where they use the customer's palm as like a payment device, or just
Okay,
like iPhones use Face ID or just like
sure.
the fingerprint and stuff. So they are working on this palm technology thing to as like a payment method, and I found that really odd because it's like taking your personal information, because I know a lot of information about like each person is like with the palm and stuff. So I was wondering if there is a law behind like a restriction with like not giving too much information to like companies when they're like asking for it, or it's just like, you know what I mean? Like I'm not too sure how to phrase this question,
Yeah,
but I
no,
was
that's
just
a great
wondering.
question. And I know exactly what you're hitting on. So California has a very, very robust, and a lot of it just passed recently this year in 2021, privacy protections for consumers. So there's like a whole area of the law. People that are just basically privacy attorneys, and they sue companies for gathering this information without providing notice and not allowing customers to kind of opt out. So if you guys like, I'll give you an example. You guys are probably browsing websites. Now you're like, oh my God, this pop-up comes up
Exactly.
discussing, what information they're gathering from me just by browsing, right? You guys have probably noticed that just recently in the past like several months, because again, in California, you can't gather this type of information without providing notice. So there's a whole new area of the law. You got to kind of opt into a lot of this, or you got to be able to opt out. And there's attorneys that just do this type of consumer protection work, data privacy work. That's a great question.
Anyone else? So I guess I'll ask a question, even though I've asked a couple so far. What was your favorite part about law school overall?
My favorite part about law school is just like the badass professors I had. Like Elizabeth Warren was one of my professors, right?
No way.
And she's awesome. Dude, she would always just, she was like brilliant, okay? And I was like a young punk kid in law school. I thought I was super smart, but she just like would destroy me. Elena Kagan, she's on the Supreme Court. She was one of my professors. Alan Dershowitz was kind of turned out to be a little bit of a douche. He was one of my professors. So I just was taught by the most brilliant people I've ever been around.
Wow. Anyone else? So I guess if no one else has any questions, then we could like end it right here. Thank you, Neema, for joining us.
Of course. Thanks, Kiana, for having me. Thanks everyone for joining. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to message me, call me. I'm always happy to help. Again, had a lot of help coming up and I'm totally willing to pay it forward. Good luck, guys. I'm sure you're all going to be successful, whatever you decide to do.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All right, bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.